Welcome to Digitally Creative. I'm your host, Vincent Ferrari, and joining me this week is my good friend who's a little bit strange. You might call him a little bit weird. He is also known as a weird guy. It's the one, the only, Jeff Stein. What's going on, bud? How you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing today, Vincent?
I am doing wonderfully. I am doing wonderfully. Life is but a dream. As I go
Well,
merrily down the stream.
to be young and in love, the whole world becomes rosy colored.
Oh yeah. That's a pretty good way to put it. Actually, we for those of you that aren't following along, well, I don't know how many people I've mentioned this to, or I don't know if I said it on a prior episode, but Kathy has officially moved in, so I am no longer living alone here in the basement of solitude, and it's kind of cool living with someone again. Like it's nice. It's a bit of an adjustment, but it's nice. I'm digging it. So.
Well, when you're in with the right person, you fit together instead of cramp into space.
Yeah, and I think that is exactly how it feels. And we were talking about it over the weekend. It's like, oh wow, it's been like 2 weeks, and it doesn't feel like weird at all for us to be living. Like it's just like, oh no, we were kind of spending all of our weekends together anyway, and now we're just spending a couple of extra days on top of the weekends together. So and we've been doing that. We started dating in February, so we've been doing that now for almost 8 months. So it isn't all that weird. But you know what? This isn't about me. How are you doing? Because I am very, very, very excited about well, a lot of things that you're working on, and we'll talk about all those. But I see you have a new pal in the menagerie.
Um, yeah, there's lots of new pals in the menagerie. I think Clamposaurus was around when I talked to you last winter. He's
Hmm.
uh yeah, but he's keeping Rosie company back there.
Rosie is Rosie is. I mean, Rosie will always be because for those that don't remember, Jeff and I we got the exact same CNC, very close to each other. Mine is in storage at Big Al Schultz's basement, and Jeff's is still doing amazing things, and he used that to make at least partially make Rosie. So
Man, I should probably finish her one of these days, but I got
I
I
don't
got
I don't
stumped on the arms and then I got distracted by something shiny.
no,
It was
you got distracted by something shiny.
I do have a piece of hose that was intended to come out of her stomach, go through her hands and act as the Rosie doing the vacuum. And I was going to route the hose down to where the dust collection went.
Hmm.
But then I never figured out how to put her arms on, and then I stopped using dust collection because I didn't care. And
I don't feel like it makes that much of a difference. I mean, it's still, even with the dust collection, even with the V2 boot, it was better, but it's still, I don't know what it would take to get good dust collection on that particular machine. I know the newer ones, Wesley was showing it in his newest video, Wesley Treat, and it's like the Pro doesn't make any dust. I don't know how, but it doesn't. But I feel like ours is just like, it's better, but it's still dusty.
well, part of it is I'm not plowing through sheets of plywood,
Hmm.
and I'm not carving into a bunch of MDF where I really want the dust collection on that.
Yes,
But
yes.
if I'm working on small, intricate projects made out of maple and walnut, then I get a little bit of walnut dust on the floor, maybe a foot in front of the machine, and the rest of it pretty much stays on the tabletop. So I have gone with, I'll quote Corey from Odyssey CNC, who said, I don't collect dust, I just set it free. And I've decided that that's my official motto. I mean, that's the way I've lived anyway, but now I've got a good descriptor for it, and that just works. I just set it free. I got a shop vac. I'll pick it up when I'm done.
When I had Corey on, because Corey, I had him on last. I'm pretty sure I had him on either the beginning of the year or the very end of last year, somewhere around there, and we were talking about the Cyclone, which is,
Right.
for those of you new to the world here, that is a rotary CNC, a three-axis rotary CNC. I want to
It
say
is a
it
three
is
axis.
three-axis. That he was building, and he had just started sending out beta units, and I remember talking about one of the beta units going to Jeff, and I was just excited to see what you did with it. And since you got that machine, the things that you've been pulling off with it, like there was the initial like, oh man, I don't know what's going on with this, or why isn't this working? Why? But you've settled into a groove with it, and watching what you've been coming out with has been absolutely fantastic. So, what was the you have your knowledge of Fusion 360 is outstanding. So knowing that ahead of time, what was it like adapting your workflows and your processes to get results with a rotary CNC? Because you had never worked with one before, I'm assuming. So what was it like working in a completely different paradigm like that?
Well, I think in three dimensions in my
Hmm.
head. So I can think around in a loop, around in a circle as well as I can from top, bottom, and left and right. So it wasn't a huge change for me to wrap my brain around the way Fusion handles it, but the there were so many problems that were more like we don't have a post processor that's specifically made for this kind of machine. So the post processor we've got, we have to check boxes to change things and go in and physically edit the extra dimensions because it this post processor is made for a 5 axis, I believe.
Hmm.
So it's got not only does it have the X, Y, and Z programmed into it, but it has the A, B, and the C programmed into it. So I have to go in and manually remove the B and the C from the code every time I generate it. So I mean it's little things, and I mean Corey and I have both been kind of winging it and figuring out how to do fusion on this machine together.
Hmm.
So I mean there's more learning curve in trying to get the the paths weren't very user friendly. They just recently came out with paths that actually have depths where you can say, I want to carve out this area, start here and go to here, and it'll go 8 passes deep and generate all of those for you. And but when I started, that path didn't even exist, and I still don't use it half the time because it doesn't work half as well. I haven't figured that path out, and I'm still doing things manually, but it is what it is. And
Something tells me given the option of somebody doing it for you or you doing it yourself, you're going to lean more toward doing it yourself anyway, as much as I know you. And I think I know you pretty well at this point. I think that's more Jeff speed is I can do this and I want to do it myself.
yeah, I like doing things the hard way. Uh, I like to give myself extra handicaps and hurdles and challenges because, I mean, for me to do something easy, that's not rewarding. I need to do something that I find difficult and challenging, or I'm not going to get that dopamine hit of reward for accomplishment because
Mm-mm.
I don't feel a sense of accomplishment for tying my shoes in the morning. So I also don't get a sense of exhilaration because I've mastered pockets and contours. So I have to ramp things a little bit. And that's the mentality that's gotten me to where I am now from where I started the CNC 3 years ago is that, well, I did the pockets and contours last time. What can I do this time that makes it a challenge for me? And then I'll add on double sided carving.
Mm-hmm.
And the next time I'll be like, okay, well, I've done that. What else can I do? Well, maybe we'll try doing some inlay or, maybe if 2 sides isn't enough, we'll carve it from 4 sides or 5 because I'm extra. But and that's why my stuff is crazy today, is because I'm never happy doing what I was doing last time, because I already figured out how to do it last time. I need to challenge myself to make something more complicated again because I already beat the last level. And when you're constantly struggling to level up your game and you also manage to find a niche that you really like to work in, then that really puts you in a place where people look at you and go, how the hell did he do that?
A lot of people, it's interesting you say that because a lot of people, I feel like they pay lip service to that idea where they say they like to challenge themselves, and they say they like to learn new things, and they say they like to struggle through figuring something out, and they say they like to do the next new thing. But then a lot of people kind of get stuck in ruts where they're really comfortable and they kind of stay there. I know I'm one of them. I mean, I do learn a lot of new things, I try a lot of new things, but for the most part I'm always staying in my comfort zone. In fact, the only thing that's dragged me out of my comfort zone is not having my wood shop temporarily. So it's kind of like, oh, I have to figure out other products to make, other things I can sell, other things that might be attractive to people. And you know how hard, because you've seen some of the stuff that I've been working on. I've been working really hard on coming up with new product for the website so that I could do it kind of all in one big dump and do it kind of the traditional way that other people, other content creators do, and see if maybe that's the secret. Like, put this all out there and say, hey, this is today's shop update, and then next time this is a shop update. I know you had an idea that I am totally adopting. We've already talked about it, and I think I've mentioned it on here, but you suggested, you had a very good suggestion of doing a t-shirt of the month type design club thing, which I think is an absolutely fantastic idea. And I have enough designs to actually make that work. And that's all stuff that's outside of my comfort zone. And it's the only reason I'm doing it is because I don't have a choice. That has to be what I do. But other than that, I would still be just making cutting boards and lasering stuff and cutting acrylic and saying, oh, I'm challenging myself, even though probably not really challenging myself at that point. So, but I do appreciate how much you say that, and then you actually do go out and challenge yourself and push yourself and try to come up with something new or an interesting project idea.
Well, if I haven't tried something new or learned something new or tried to figure out something complicated, then it's not rewarding.
Hmm.
It's just, it tends towards repetitive for me. I just, that's not what I want to do with my shop time.
I,
I the reason I have so much fun with the CNC is because it's complicated as hell, and I compounded that by using the least sensible piece of software available. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's extremely powerful and flexible and allows you to do everything. But it's, I mean, if you want to do a CNC and you want to make amazing things right out of the gate, go buy yourself Aspire. Go buy Vectric Aspire. It is made for CNCs, and right out of the box, you can be doing inlays and all kinds of other reliefs and 3D stuff, and it makes it's it's the Apple version of CNC software. It's user friendly. It's made for somebody to plug it in and make signs. Fusion, on the other hand, it's much more flexible. It's probably more powerful, but it's also the most confusing and complicated and overcomplicated. But I like that because that makes it more difficult for me.
that's interesting because I can actually speak to that. First of all, I'm just going to say up front, I've never had any luck learning any of the Vectric software. It makes no sense to me. I had VCarve Pro, I had VCarve Desktop. I tried learning it. It made no sense to me whatsoever. But then I see Al using it, and it's like, oh, this actually makes a lot of sense. When you watch someone who knows how to use it, it makes a lot of sense. But it made no sense to me But it's funny you mentioned that about Fusion because I am not going to be renewing my Fusion subscription. I'm pretty sure that if I don't renew it, it's just going to drop down to a free subscription, which is fine. It's probably all that I need at this point because obviously without the CNC, I don't need the cam anymore. And if you don't need the cam, there's really no reason to pay for Fusion if you don't need the cam.
No.
And even to some extent, you can even get the cam for free. There's all kinds of they're about as clear as mud with their pricing on Fusion. But I started playing around with FreeCAD because I had heard so much about it and I never really gave it a fair chance except a long time ago I tried and I was like, this is terrible. I went through the tutorials and after going through the tutorials, I made Kathy, she has a vape pen that she uses, and I made a pretty nice little stand for it. And I was like, oh wow, like it's actually more constrained, it's more specific, it's more exact, but it's also easier. Once you learn the parameters that it operates in, it's actually easier to use than Fusion. You just have to learn the parameters that it operates in. It's not as flexible, but it does everything Fusion. Wasn't able to find anything I could do in Fusion that I couldn't do with it. It's just you have to learn how to operate in a very rigid set of parameters. It's more of a traditional CAD program than Fusion is.
I took a look at something else called Desk Proto. I don't know if you've
Ooh,
heard of that one.
I've not.
Um, they are a very reasonable CAM software that you
Oh
can
wow.
plug in 3D models and do 3-axis carving. It's got rotary available. Um, Hobby license was like, I think it was under 300 bucks. I think it was 200 and something for a
Yep.
lifetime.
€248. So yeah, that's about was that that's about $300. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was about 300 bucks, and that's a you own it, not a yearly thing, and it does rotary.
Yeah,
Um,
this is fantastic. I'm looking at it now. Like this is powerful stuff for the price. Holy
that
crap.
was actually that's actually what I started with while I was waiting for Corey to get me the help I needed to get started on the Fusion. You know, we didn't until I get a post processor and stuff, I couldn't even look at it. So I started with the Desk Proto for a while, but it was doing something weird, and I don't know why. It had something weird to do with the controller maybe, but it would go around, and every time it wanted to turn around, it would go around like it would turn completely an extra 25 rotations, and then it would move over and it would go 25 rotations back the other way, and I don't know what the hell it was doing, but I got frustrated trying to figure that out, and then I got Fusion running and I just haven't made it back. But it looks like a really good software. I'm guessing if I had a normal rotary controller instead of whatever I've got in here, that might be better. And it looks like it works fine for 3-axis stuff too.
Yeah,
So
if you were to throw that on Rosie, it would probably be pretty good. I mean, the software that comes with Carbide Create, which comes with all the machines that they make, the Shape Oko line of machines, is actually very good now. It's not the amateur training wheel stuff that it was when I first got it. Even in just the couple of years I've had the machine, the software has gotten way, 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 way better. But I imagine that yeah, if you do something like this there, that would be pretty awesome software to run Rosie with. That's I like this. I'm looking at it now. I'm watching as we're talking. The demo video is looping on the homepage, and I'm looking at it out the corner of my eye, and I'm like, wow, that looks really easy to use. Like
yeah,
it seems to make sense, which is scary.
yeah, I'm gonna have to try it on the 3-axis here at some point, but you know, I've got so many things to do, and I'm arms deep into Fusion so badly that it's so hard to pick up my head and do anything else. Because
Well, I got two pieces, and I can't show them on camera, but I got two pieces of client work that is modeling stuff in Fusion. And one of them, I think I showed it to you. The other one that I did the other day, and I said this was more exact than anything I'd ever done in Fusion before. But I actually
right,
have. I'm looking at it now and what made me think of it is I see my notepad on my desk in front of me, and the notepad has all the measurements that I took. And I realized I took probably about 20 different measurements for a very, what's a, I mean, you saw the piece. It's a very simple piece, but I took like 20 different measurements, and then I did the sketch. And in the sketch, everything is constrained and dimensioned, and there's nothing floating, and there's nothing that isn't anchored to either the axis, the origin, or another piece that's already dimensioned and locked in place with a constraint to keep it. And I was like, I finished that, and I was like, this is the most I have ever worked on a single piece, and it went the smoothest because once I had everything constrained correctly, which that's a whole other thing, but once I had everything constrained correctly, even as I made changes, everything just shifted over and moved. Like I changed angles on some stuff, and I changed the angle, and everything just shifted over. The length of a line changed, the angle over there changed, this changed in relation to that. And I was like, wow, I finally understand why you go through all this hell to set all this up, because when it's not so much for your first run, like if you get it right the first time, it's not necessary. But if you have to make changes later on, it's a whole different ballgame when you do everything right and do that all that setup the first time. The only thing I have left to do on this before I see my client again is I have to actually parameterize it now, like to so that he can just go into the box in Fusion and just change measurements to change the dimensions of everything, because everything is so constrained now that just changing measurements won't break it. And that makes me really proud. Like that was a major accomplishment for me, and that's why you were the first person I wanted to show. I'm like,
And
look what I did, man. Look what I did. This is so perfect. This is so perfect. Like it doesn't look like much, but I started working on it, I realized how complex it actually was. Like,
well, yeah, it was a very complicated object with some weird curves and stuff to it.
yeah, yeah.
So I mean, I was pretty impressed that came out. I saw the picture of what it was and the picture of the model, and I think that you nailed that.
It was
And
it was it was a major, like I got to show the one person I know who would appreciate this more than anything else. I had to show
yeah,
it to Jeff. I'm like, this is once I get Jeff's okay that this is a job well done, then I know I did a good job on it.
yep. No, that was a good part, and oh, I can't wait to see how that turns out for you.
Yeah, I'm working on another one now that I'm completely stumped on. And then I actually told the client, I'm like, listen, you've kind of hit the outer limit of my skills. And then as I was chatting with him, I'm like, wait, I actually think I know how to do this. Like as I'm talking, it hit me like, no, try this instead. So once we're done and I get this podcast edited and ready to go, then I'm going to go back to it. And I think I actually know how to get it done this time. And I'm kind of excited about getting to play with it. It's weird. I'm getting excited again about doing design work for clients, like whatever the design work, either it's, flat 2D stuff in illustration, or modeling parts in 3D, or actually I can show this now. This bad boy, which Henry posted the reel for, so I can actually show it on camera now. But this belt buckle, that's my design, and we are in the process of working on. I'm going to have 25 of these for my shop before Christmas. He's hand casting them, and it's my design, and we are very, very excited about being able to offer those to makers. I am over the moon about how it looks. I can't even believe I'm holding one in my hand. It's so cool.
I think you told me about this when you were designing it,
Hmm.
and I saw him post that buckle like last week. Somehow I had not connected the dots.
And if you look at the back, it says HMVF and HT. So it's Henry T. Davis and handmade by Vincent Ferrari. If if people haven't seen this yet, you can go to, he has a reel. I think I added myself as a collaborator, so you should see it in my feed also. But it is HT1 Metalworks on Instagram. He posted this, and yeah, I can't believe this is a real thing that I'm holding in my hand. He does such beautiful work. Like this is incredible. The fact that this is done with like Petrobond and poured brass. But this was something he approached me. When did he come to me? He came to me somewhere. I think it was around March. And he's like, "Hey, I have an idea. Here's what I want to do." And I was like, "Okay, so what are my constraints?" He goes, "You have free creative license." And I was just talking with Abby how much I hate when people tell me that. And it's funny because I hadn't gotten this yet. Um, but it was like, it was a major project for me to be able to be a part of this collaboration with him, and I love the way it turned out. So hopefully I can find a belt that I can attach it to for Maker Camp.
Yeah, having a belt that'd help.
Yeah.
I think we know people that make belts though.
Yeah,
You
unfortunately, it's Maker Camp is this weekend, and I hadn't thought to ask someone because I thought I had a belt that it would work with. Turns out I don't. So now I got to run. Probably going to run out because Kathy's going to be away this weekend. Um, so I think Saturday is going to be running around to different stores trying to find a belt that I can put this on. And yeah, it's a real thing. So that's coming to my store soon. But just talking about how excited design is getting me now. Like, I'm doing a lot more design, illustration, product. I'm even doing freelance product packaging for a company, and it's kind of like, wow, I'm doing the digital part of this. I'm being digitally creative.
Hmm. Well, it's appropriate. At least you're on
Yeah,
brand.
very on brand. I've actually thought of changing the name of my company or creating a secondary company called Digitally Creative for the design work and stuff, because it does kind of fit that I can make presentations with the Digitally Creative name as the company name. So I'm thinking about doing that and turning this into more than a podcast brand, because I kind of like, even if the podcast falls on its face, which I hope it never does, but even if it does, I can turn it into something else down the road. So who knows? You never know.
Well, I don't see it falling on its face as long as you still have the motivation to record it. You'll and I think if there's like 6 listeners out there, you're gonna sit down and record the damn thing anyway
I
because
think you're right. I
it's
think you're totally right.
I've heard there was something about writers. Um, I think it was in a Heinlein book. It was something about how writing was a worse addiction than alcohol. That once you started writing and putting your feelings out and putting things out and creating stories, that it was a sickness that you could not stop, even if you really wanted to.
Hmm.
I think podcasting falls underneath that category. I think that you are hopelessly addicted to spewing out your opinion to the world and sharing it with people, whether they
Hmm.
want to hear it or not. And I don't think you can stop if you had to. You
I
you
did
may
stop, and
you
I
may
couldn't
lose
say
interest in
stop.
you could lose interest in the topic, and
Hmm.
you'll pop up 6 months later doing something completely else. Just like because we make wasn't your original podcast, you switched that from you were a political podcast back in the day, weren't you?
Hmm. Hmm.
So, and you got out of that because of the level of toxicity, but you found a new topic, you found a new subject, you found a new interest in life, and then you resumed spewing your opinion out to the public unstoppably because that's what you have to do now. I don't think you could stop if you wanted to.
I I I I don't see it as much in myself. You know who I see it in? And it's interesting because, getting to know Kathy has been a very interesting experience for me, because she fits exactly what you just said. She is driven in a way that, I'll be honest with you, there are times where I doubt that I am as driven as she is. Um, but seeing her, hold on one second. Hold on one second. They're doing if you hear noise in the background, I apologize, but they are doing street repaving a couple of blocks over. I just want to make sure it's not my lawn guys. And we're back, and it's my jerk neighbor who has nothing better to do but blow leaves at 3 o'clock on a Monday afternoon. So we're all good. Um,
Well, you just can't let them lay where they fall out of the tree. That's unnatural.
it's unnatural. How could you? I always, I had in my prior house, I had a half acre, a quarter of which was actually usable. And in the fall, I would never touch the leaves on the lawn. And my lawn was the nicest on the whole block. And people were like, I don't know what you do to your lawn, but it works so well. I was like, what do you mean? Well, like, what do you pour stuff on? Do you feed it? Like, it's grass. Like, grass grows in a lot of places in the world that aren't lawns, right? And it's like, well, you water it every day. I've never watered. I don't even have a hose. And it turns out that, believe it or not, Jeff, and I know it's going to come as a big surprise to you, buddy, when you let natural fertilizer stay in the ground, the grass grows better. I,
No.
it's
Really?
crazy. It's
It's
crazy.
it's almost like the leaves decompose and provide nutrients to the soil to
It,
replenish things so that the grass can pull those back out.
it's
It's
like a
almost like there's a
cycle.
cycle there, yeah.
It's like a cycle of
It
ecology,
is.
kind of like a system of ecology. I wonder if they have a name for that. A
Mm.
system of ecology. Like an almost I would call it like an ecosystem. I think I just coined that. I don't think anyone's ever heard that term before. We should patent that
I don't
one.
know. I like it. We'll put it in the dictionary.
Put it in the
I
dictionary. Submit
I'll
it to
put
the
it in the
dictionary.
dictionary tonight. I'll put it in the dictionary tonight. It'll be there by the time people hear this on Wednesday.
But I was saying before I got cut off, just to make sure, because I don't need dirt blowing in my apartment. Um, I think Kathy is a good example of exactly what you said, where I watch her do her radio show and she is super dedicated and super religious about it. Like Wednesday night, 8 to 10, that's what she's doing. And she prepares from 7 to 8 just to make sure that she knows the direction she wants to do. She doesn't just play songs. Like everyone thinks a DJ just plays songs, and some do, but she actually has a method to how she picks out, and she makes sure that her songs go together and they kind of lead into each other effectively. And then, when she takes requests, the requests kind of flow into each other. She doesn't just play the requests all disjointed and weird from people. Sometimes she'll break up somebody's requests if they can batch better with other requests. And I watch that and I'm like, wow, that takes a lot of, dedication and love and attention that, some people, they don't have it. They just do it because they like to do it. But she's driven that way, and it kind of motivates me to be religious about recording. Like when we were setting up to record, she was eating lunch, and she's like, "Oh, it's almost 2 o'clock," and she took her lunch and she went back into her desk so that we had the room to record. And it's like, wow, this is like she. Not only is she driven with what she does, but she kind of drives me to be more driven and regimented with what I do, and it's kind of a good system, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, you may not see it in yourself, but think about when you stopped recording a podcast for a couple of months, then that itch started scratching at you. It was like, "Oh, I feel like I need to do this. I feel like I'm missing something. I feel like I have to." And then you reinvented the podcast and here we are again.
Hmm.
You know, it's you don't feel addicted until you try to go without it.
Addiction is felt in the withdrawals.
Exactly. Exactly.
It was, when it really hit me, and I've told this story, but it really hit me at Maker Camp when people bumped into me and they were like, "I really missed the podcast," and I'm like, "Man, I need to be doing this again." Like, and then it started coming together as an idea, and then the logo, and then talking to people at Maker Camp and setting up future recordings and telling people I wanted to record with them, so we should schedule some time together. And I'm planning on that's going to be a big focus of my trip to Maker Camp this year is lining up guests. I mean, hell, I went to RetroCon in Philly just to just have some fun, and I ended up with the next guest who was supposed to be the guest this week, but his schedule kind of got screwed up on him, so he's going to be the guest next week. But it's just, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. It does just become a thing where it's almost an addiction. I think the people that enjoy doing this are going to always enjoy doing it, no matter how many people listen. So.
Exactly. I think you're
So
stuck with podcasting.
you know what? This is what I do. Like, and what I've also been happy with is that I've kind of managed to make the videos starting to overtake the audio downloads on some episodes. Like not every episode, but some episodes. There's more video watches than there are downloads of the audio, and I'm like, oh, okay,
Are
this is
those the ones with guests that are hot chicks? Just curious.
no, no. Honestly, they're not. Dave would hardly be called a hot chick. But that episode with him was very popular, relatively. on my YouTube channel as opposed to the audio download. The audio download didn't get anywhere near the traction, but that's because he tagged me in a community post on his YouTube channel. And it's like, I think this is where I need to be. This is where I'm finding my audience on the YouTube channel. People are watching. The retention's decent. Look, not everybody is willing to sit here and watch a 1 hour episode on YouTube, but I've watched the viewer hours are climbing like a lot. People are watching this on YouTube now more than they're listening to it on Spotify/audio. So I'm perfectly happy with that. I'd almost rather that be the case. So.
And it seems to be more of a trend. I mean, making it started video last week, and I don't know if I'm going to have time for that or not. The catch of it for me, I like watching people talk about stuff like that, but
Mhm.
the amount of time I have for audio content and the amount of time I have for video content are they're not the same places and situations.
I
Yeah,
agree.
the audio works really well for me when I'm in the car
Mhm.
or when I'm in the shop and I need to put my headphones on to drown out the tool noise anyway.
Mhm.
But none of those situations are really good for watching an hour podcast on video. I
Sure.
can't do that in the car. I can't do that while watching. Well, I guess if I'm just watching the CNC run, I could probably watch a video, but
Yeah.
um
Ooh, the CNC is a way more interesting.
well, I mean, once you watch it go back and forth 748,000 times, I'm not saying it's not interesting because it's still amazing every time to watch it go around. But if you're running as project that's got 40 hours of carve time, you could
Mm,
probably watch a video podcast somewhere in the middle of that. But you certainly can't while you're cutting and planing and sanding, and doesn't really
no,
work as well.
totally. I actually, it's funny because I always thought that that was just me being all amateur hour. Like when the Glowforge would run, I would almost everything, unless I was really in a time crunch, it would pretty much come to a halt, and I would watch the Glowforge do its thing. When I was running Tweaky on the few jobs I used Tweaky on, letting Tweaky do its thing. It was always a thing that like I like to watch the machine do its magic. But yeah, I'm also not doing 40-hour carves. I'm not Al. Al does the last project that he and I worked on together was hours and hours and hours and hours of carving. And even watching one component of it happen, it was like, wow, that is a lot of like I wouldn't be able like I would just get nothing done if I was sitting there watching that machine go for this,
Right.
14 hours
And
to do one side of a thing.
it's amazing that the watching the robots, whether the lasers or the printers, if they go fast enough, or the CNCs go, they're super amazing to sit and watch when you're in person. But if you're not there, nobody somehow real time is the one way that people do not want to watch a robot work.
No,
I
it's
mean, I
totally
could
true.
put up CNC video of this thing carving in real time and nobody would care. If I want to make it interesting, I either have to go with time lapse or slow mo. Those are the
Mhm.
two that really pick up the eyeballs. That's where they really look good on film, is doing things really slowly because you watch it carving around in circles and throwing chips in slow motion. That's just neat.
Mhm.
And
It
the time
it never
lapse
gets old either.
and the time lapse is just where you can watch in just a matter of 30 seconds. You can watch a block of wood morph into a cool part and a shape and a piece of something, and it's like that's a cool transition that you can watch it just change right in front of your eyes quickly, even though it took me 3 hours of patience for that to get there. But the rest of you get to enjoy it in 30 seconds because that's what's the attention span is good for these days.
I feel like, I've heard a lot of creators that make long form YouTube content saying they like making shorts because making shorts, it's lower, it's a little more editing and you need to be a little more finessed and a little more rigid. but in the end, it's easier to just crank out shorts than it is to do long form content because you don't have to deal with the storytelling. I mean, you do, but not to the same extent. You're still telling a story, but you're not telling, a 20-minute story. You're telling a 60-second story. And
Well,
it's always
that's
interesting.
that's not even what I would consider short form content. I mean, that's at this point, if you're making a reel that's telling a story and you've got between 58 and 90 seconds of content in there, I'm considering that middle range content at this point because you see a lot of reels that are 8 seconds long.
Hmm.
And I mean, one of the most popular things I've posted in the last 2 weeks was an 8 second clip where I put the head on one of my mallets and that I had the handle and I had the head and I put the head on it and I gave it a spin and it went around like a couple times and stopped and it was like 7.5 seconds and I think I've got more views on that. I think last time I
11
checked, it was 8 or 10,000, and that's
11.1 thousand views on that one.
and it's because everybody watches the entire thing, and because they watch it more than once.
Hmm.
Therefore, it gets the oomph because those are some of the things people are looking at
Hmm.
for the algorithm is do people swipe off of it before the content is over? In which case, that's a downvote for the algorithm. And if you watch the entire thing, that's an upvote. The longer you watch it, the more that's an upvote. And if you watch it go around twice, that's an even bigger upvote. And if you interact with it, that as well too. So sometimes having a 7 second video clip that has no story, no point, it's just a here, watch this quick little clip of something that gets the view. Most people can manage to watch an entire 7 second video without swiping it.
Sure.
Even if you're
If you
bored
can
halfway through, by the time your finger gets there, it's over.
it's over, yeah.
So,
Y- it's funny. It's funny because you've been pretty, and I don't think I'm speaking out of school here when I say this, but you've been pretty honest about your overall emotions about how weird it is, the things when you put a lot of effort in, you don't feel like they get the pop that you would like them to get, and then you'll do something like that. Or you had the Chomposaurus just chomping on stuff, and that was popping off. Like every time Chomposaurus chomped on something, it popped off. And I'm looking at your reels page, and I see the two reels you did about the skull lamp, which absolutely, and guys, if you haven't seen this video, and I've mentioned it a few times, I think it was last week that I mentioned it when I was reading off the financial supporters of the show. That skull lamp that you made is one of the coolest damn things you've ever made. And you've made some incredible stuff just since I've known you, but that skull lamp is absolutely stunning. I showed it to Kathy's cousin because you had kind of finished it and put up the reveal reel. And she's not a maker by any stretch of the imagination. And even she looked at it and she just said, "Holy shit, that's cool." Right? And to get a holy shit out of a pedestrian or a civilian is like, whoa, like another maker going, because I know what's involved in you making that. I watched you come up with the design. You showed me, not AutoCAD, Fusion 360 screenshots as you were designing it. And seeing the finished product, it's just like, this thing is absolutely spectacular. But then what's your number one reel is you spinning the head onto a handle, not the beautiful reveal of this incredible piece of art that you created. It's like, it's not
no,
fair.
I've made a couple reels for that lamp, and thank you for the way. I'm glad you appreciate it.
I
But
absolutely do.
the couple reels I've made for that, they're stuck at like 500 or like 500 views or something like that. But I spin a mallet head and it gets 10, 11,000. So
Yeah, you had that one. You did have the one of the initial sculpt of the skulls that got 120 some odd thousand plays.
right.
But that's the only one. The rest of them are all like around between 1,000 and 3,000, right? Which, by the way, I'm not putting. That's better than any of my reels have ever done. So I'm not putting that down. But it's like, damn, the effort that goes into them is never proportional to the audience reception. It's so
No,
weird. It's the exact opposite of what you
it,
would
it
expect.
it's the opposite. And unfortunately, that creates the race to the bottom where we've got reels that are going viral of some jackass in his shop hammering a nail into a board crooked and bending the shit out of it for 12 seconds. And somehow this got 12 million views. And yet somebody can spend 50 hours over the course of 6 weeks making the most complicated thing they've ever seen, and it gets 1,000 views.
Peeling wood glue off of the Rockler silicone mat is such a thing. And it's like, and I know it's satisfying. I get it because I like it too. Like when every woodworker that works with wood glue, when you peel your silicone mat and you peel that one big sheet of glue with the bumps in it, like it's satisfying as hell. We're not trying to say it's not satisfying, but damn, it's like everyone watches those videos and nobody's watching art, like actual like art and artistic effort. It's so sad almost.
Well, it's almost like they're catering to the lowest common denominator for views to keep them addicted to the platform.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. The social networks have all gone in the same exact direction, and apparently it's intentional that they all follow the same path. Uh, I read an article, and I'm going to give credit to this to the Grant Alexander who shared this link. There's an article called something to the effect of the enshittification of social media apps.
That's a great term for it.
And it describes that there's a laid out plan for how social media works. And in stage one, they make it as appealing to the users as possible. They offer very few ads, they offer tons of new features, lots of cool, shiny things, and awesome ways for you to come in and share content and create community. Most importantly, they want you to create a community. Stage one is all about attracting millions and millions of users and addicting them, importantly, to the system, to your platform. Once you have the user base addicted, they're addicted to their community. They've built friends and communities, and they're stuck to this platform by their communities. Then stage two comes on, and stage two is they appeal to the advertisers and they say, look, we've got 18 bajillion users. We can categorize them because we know everything about them. You can market to the people you specifically want. We've got nice, cheap ads, tons of views. The world's your oyster. Come on in. And they attract the ads to come in. And then they get them hooked on good advertisements and good advertising base and tools and low prices. And then they get them hooked and addicted as well. Once the users are addicted and the advertisers are addicted, then we move on to phase three, which is make the shareholders happy by cranking up the number of ads on the page and cranking up the prices of the ads to the poor advertisers whose business model is now dependent upon advertising on this platform. They crank up the prices, they crank up the number of ads, and they enshittify the entire platform for the users and the advertisers to the end benefit of the shareholders, which was the entire plan from square one.
That's wild. And it's actually you can map that out across any number of platforms right now, and that is exactly how it's gone down. That is crazy.
It's nuts. I was a
It's
hell of
so
an article.
specific.
It was a hell of an article, and we are absolutely in phase three of most social networks at this point.
It feels that way. It totally feels that way. There has been I've it's funny because there was a time where, the social networks in general, and I'll just speak of them generally. Not it's always been one or the other or all three or whatever. But there was a time where if I didn't use them, I felt like I was missing out. I felt like they were my lifeline. I felt like now it's like I don't I almost don't want to. Like if I'm I can unplug from social networks much more easily than I used to be able to. I think in the effort to shove more of the stuff I don't want in front of me, they've actually made me realize like, well, I don't want this. It's weird because the algo will show you. I was doing this experiment with, anyone anyone remember Threads? But I was doing this experiment with Threads when I first got into Threads, and for the first 2 weeks, Threads was amazing because it was everybody I followed. It was my people, and I would go there. And it was like Twitter, but without the toxicity and without the craziness, but it was all the people I wanted to see and without the algorithmic feed, which was amazing. It was everyone. Very quickly, it got to a point where I wasn't literally seeing anyone that I followed. And I did a reel that I post, or I think I posted it in my stories or maybe on the Discord. I don't remember. I posted it somewhere. I know I showed it to you. I was like, look, this is what my threads look like. I'm not lying. Here's how long I have to scroll to see someone I'm following. And it was a post from the day ago. So it wasn't like it was 2 weeks old at the time. And I realized at that point, I was like, I just don't like threads that much. Like, and I don't like it because they're not showing me what I want to see anyway. They think they know what I want to see. So they're showing me a million different things that they think I want to see. Meanwhile, I'm signaling, I want to see my people. I follow these people. And then they
Well,
finally added a following page. And that's where I just go by default now.
that was a failure on their part to achieve stage one of addicting the user by
Yeah.
giving them what they want,
Yes.
and then waiting until they're addicted to take that away.
Yes.
They they
They didn't get
they
to the addiction phase before
they
they
did that
started taking away what made
that
it
that
attractive.
fishing mistake where when you feel the first nibble, you yank on the line, but they don't have it
Hmm.
in their mouth yet.
Hmm.
I'm not a fishing person, but I mean I've done it. But that's
I'm not a
that's what
fishing
they did.
person
They
either,
they they
so
did
we
the
we
they
share
did the
that.
yank the hook out before you quite had your mouth around it, and
Yeah,
they lost you. But
yeah. I
that's
haven't been back. I don't even have the app on my phone anymore because it's just like I don't want this. Like I
I
checked in on Threads too, and I'm looking at it now. I'm looking at my feed. There's nothing here.
I open it occasionally, but I don't really care too much. And I was thinking about kind of getting into it and trying to develop a different kind of community there than I've already got on Instagram. But then
Mhm.
then I started seeing threads posted on my Instagram feed, and I'm like, no, that's not what I want. You know, you're not a goddamn peanut butter cup. Get your chocolate out of my peanut butter. You know.
Wow, that's a commercial that about 20 people that were listening remember. By the way, I'm very proud of you for that one. I love old references like that.
Oh, well, those commercials were great where the guy in the corner stumbles and bumps into the girl and he
Hmm.
jams his uh
You got your chocolate in my peanut
a
butter. You
Hershey
got my
bar
peanut
into
butter.
her, yeah,
Hmm.
peanut butter
I
jar.
The most fun I've had recently, the most fun I've had with a project recently, and you did it also, was Emmett's treescape project for charity.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
that was
that was
fantastic.
super duper fun. I was thinking about that, as I think of how you and I are very different people, but we kind of went in directions that were very on brand for us. You did a Lego tree based on the traditional old school, like 1970s, early 80s Lego set ball tree. And I did a tree from 2-1 of Super Mario Brothers. And you did it by carving aluminum, which was awesome. And I did it by layering lasered pieces of MDF and then hand painting it because I'm obsessed with hand painting things now. And it's really funny like how many people did so many cool things for that project. Like seeing the final treescape and what people were handing in. I mean, I know there were some people who, and I don't want to insult anyone, but there were some people who kind of phoned it in a little bit. I won't name names or people, but there were people who phoned it in. But then there were people who just went way, way, way out there, and a lot of people kept it. You doing your aluminum and experimentation, me doing something retro video game related. It was very much like everybody found their little niche and then jumped into it wholeheartedly and made a tree. Just what is your
Yeah,
interpretation of a tree?
those those collaborations are really good. I think they're great because they're there's a lower bar of entry than a challenge. If
Hmm.
it's a challenge and it's a competition, and you see your competition turning in, a Statue of Liberty that you carved out a peanut with a drill bit or some shit, then it's like, well, I can't compete with that. I'm not going to bother.
Exactly.
But if it's a collaboration, then it's just like everybody needs to just do something that fits the theme that is on brand for you.
Hmm.
I think that's a lot lower bar, and I think it's a good way to get more participation than actually having it be a competition. But and it's so much fun to watch everybody do what their thing is. Of course I had to do something on the CNC, and you did something video game related on the laser,
Yep.
and then you've got the people who are actually geniuses that make pewter broccoli. Um, that one that one takes it for me. That I'm
that was
Everybody did a
that was
lot of
Lindsay,
good
right?
work, but that one was my winner on the whole treescape for me.
That was Lindsay, right? That did that.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
Lindsay. She took a real piece of broccoli and created a mold from it and poured pewter into it, and then made that into her tree. So that's an actual piece of broccoli that was molded and pewtered.
It's kind of wild. It's kind of wild actually when you see, because you think about, oh, a tree. Well, we all know what a tree looks like. When we were a kid, we all drew them the same way. And you see what people's imaginations like, okay, I want to make it out of this material. What do I do? Like, how do I make this out of a material? How do I make something that looks like I thought about it? How do I put this together in a way that makes it interesting? And everyone just, it made me so happy seeing people just being their super creative selves, doing wild stuff. I mean, I was enjoying like crazy watching yours because I was a big Lego kid, and watching yours like come together and just knowing what you were making. Like, I knew it would take 3 seconds even seeing it being made to know what you were making. And it just felt like, God, this is why I love this community. Like, seeing people show off their skill, like in a like, one of the things I love about the way he did it was he didn't say work in this medium. He said make a
Right.
tree. And it's like, oh, okay, so I work in the mediums I'm comfortable working in. So for me, it was lasered MDF. Like, I love working in lasered MDF. It's one of my favorite things to work with. I have a very
Yeah.
large supply of MDF sitting right on the other side of that wall back there, um, that actually is stored in the kitchen because I literally have no place else to put it. But it's like, it's it's just like seeing you working in aluminum after, and it's funny because that was the second collab you used aluminum for. I was like, hey, he's just getting really
Yeah.
good with aluminum now. Like, aluminum's
Yeah, I
become
did.
his thing.
I did aluminum on the chess set too.
Hmm.
Um,
And made an epic, epic, epic dragon type
well, that
knight.
was a fun one, and that was fun because I hadn't CNC'd aluminum before, and it
Hmm.
was also fun because I just got a resin printer when I was in the middle of that project, and then I decided to print pieces of resin that fit and mated to the pieces that I'd carved on the CNC, and that was kind of fun.
That was epic. Honestly, I
It's
love.
very rare that I actually involve my 3D printer in any of my real makery processes. I
Mhm.
mean, I've mostly printed, widgets.
I love how quickly you took to resin 3D printing because it took me way too long. to kind of get comfortable with resin 3D printing. And I still, as you call it, and I love that you call it this, but I still prefer my plastic pooper because I know how that machine works inside out. I know what to expect. I know its tolerances. I know what it's capable of. I know what it's not capable of. I know, like, I can look at something on the screen and go, that's not going to work. I'll try it because if it's a short commitment type thing, but there was a recent project I worked on where it took multiple attempts to get something that would 3D print correctly. But I knew, like, I would send it to the printer and go, that's not going to print, but I want to see what the result, I want to see the tolerances. So I'm printing something I know is not going to work, but I want to see where it fails so I know how to adjust for it. And I ended up completely changing direction. But you didn't seem to have that period with resin 3D printing. You kind of you hit the ground running like a crazy person. I don't understand it because
Well,
it was a mystery to me. It's still kind of opaque.
I I think you had some failure in the initial setup to get things exactly where you needed for the zeros and the
I think
tolerances.
that's
And
part of it. I think
I
that's
think
part of
you
it.
screwed something up so the machine wasn't doing what it was supposed to on a consistent basis.
Hmm.
And I don't know. Apparently, I followed the instructions when I set it up, but it just worked for me out of the box. And I just started, downloading Thingiverse and printing out whatever tchotchkes my kid thought he wanted on his shelf next. So,
In fairness, the new 3D printer I got prints beautifully. Like, I'm really happy. It's
oh
the
yeah,
Frozen Sonic Mini 8K. It's a beautiful printer. It's legitimately one of the best 3D printers I've ever owned, but it's there's something comfortable for me about even that recent project that I just finished that I can't talk about yet. But knowing that I can just go to the plastic pooper and know that I'm going to get a piece that's exactly what I want, and with a little bit of sanding, a little bit of gesso, and some paint, I got exactly the piece I want, and no one would know it's 3D printed. But
yeah. Well, I was hoping to get a bamboo this year, but that didn't happen. So I'm still filament free, and that's a whole learning curve. I guess I'm not really looking. I don't need it,
you
so I
don't
mean,
need
I'm
it.
not super excited about learning it because I haven't found any reason I need it yet. And I don't know. Maybe I'll
No,
get
I
one eventually, but
I totally understand. I totally understand. I the only reason, and look, I think part of it is I have a very good filament printer. If I didn't have a very good filament printer, I would buckle down and learn my resin printing better. Like, I would be much more comfortable with it. But I have such a good filament printer that, and I was even showing Kathy the other day, is like, watch, I'm just going to go in there, I'm going to put the card in, I'm going to hit print, and I'm going to walk away from this machine. It'll print. And I don't have to think about it. I check on it because it's fun to watch, but I check on it just to make sure it's still on the bed. I know that that printer is going to print every time I turn it on. It's the most reliable piece of technology I have ever owned in my life for something that is generally not a terribly reliable piece of technology. That's quite an accomplishment.
well, that's what happens when you don't buy the cheap shitty ones. Or
Yeah.
oh, get the latest thing that came out for free because you're going to pimp it on the internet.
Yep. Yep. I see
That's a
that a
good way to
lot.
get problems.
I see that. I do see that a lot. I actually, it's really funny because now I'm starting. I saw that. You saw how Bamboo Labs came out with that little cantilever bed slinging. Basically, it's I want to say it's 10-inch by 10-inch, but it's a tiny little single arm, no dual axis screws, everything kind of little printer. And I'm looking at this thing going, okay, for the price, it's not bad, but I can't wait to see everybody telling me this is the best printer ever because it's like it's Bamboo, and Bamboo loves to send free stuff out to 3D printing influencers. And I don't know. I don't fault people that like the machines. I know they're good machines, but I also know that they have spent an inordinate amount of money putting free machines in the hands of influencers to get them to say nice things about them. I mean, it's anyone who tells me otherwise. I know, we don't have to say certain things, but I know. And you're not
Well,
biased at all by getting a free item. I know.
there's there's some people who you can trust their opinion when they
Mhm.
get something new. Even if they're telling you it's free, they're going to tell you it was free, but it's worth exactly what I paid for it. And then there's other people where you're not even sure. And if you just don't know somebody and you know their integrity level, then you just don't believe any of the initial reviews that come out. You just
I agree.
wait until you wait until the review money is gone and they're complaining about the damn thing breaking down in 6 months. That's when you get the real information.
I feel like the pre-release review are the ones that you almost exclusively have to huge grain of salt, if not completely disregard. Once it's out and it's a mass market product, then I think you can actually listen to the reviews. I really am skeptical of every single review that comes out before a product now, because I have seen a lot of the bamboo reviewers that I saw when the carbon came out, and everybody was raving about it, and it has a lot of really great features. It's an exciting printer, and what's funny is that it's Core XY, which is not a new technology, but everybody's acting like they invented something new here. But okay, let's pretend it's something new. But everybody was super duper excited. And I've seen a lot of those same reviewers come back with their 6 months in look at it and go, yeah, this broke. This hasn't been fixed. The ringing when it prints is not amazing. You can print at super high speeds, but the quality takes a bigger hit than I thought it did when I did my first review. And it's like, okay, like I don't fault people for figuring this stuff out down the line. I know there's pressure to get your reviews up. I know if they send you a printer there before it's released, they're probably giving you a, hey, this is drop dead day. This is the day you need to put your review up. I know all that. I understand it and I'm fine with it. But man, if I had bought based on one of those reviews, I would be really, really upset. And a lot of people, I'd be a lot upset, not only that I bought it, but I'd be upset with a lot of the people who I trusted to tell me that this was a good thing to buy, and then you end up finding out like, eh, it's not any better than what's already out there. It's just got potential to be.
Well, it's nice to be on the crest of new technology and have the latest and greatest fantastic stuff at your fingertips, but
Hmm.
there's a risk riding on that crest that you'll tumble over the edge and get washed over by the wave. I mean, there's a lot of new stuff doesn't work as well as they wanted it to, and a
Yeah.
lot of times the stuff has been rushed out the door, and then it turns out that you, the customer, is actually a beta tester,
Yep.
and you're finding out where the speed bumps are, and then they're going to have to go back and fix things for everybody else later. So an early adoption's got its pros and cons. I mean,
Sure.
cool, I've got this fantastic thing. It does shit 7 times faster than anybody else's.
Hmm.
How important is that to me? And do I want to wait to make sure that it's going to make it 6 months before I buy one? Or do I need it to go really fast right now?
Yeah. Like I'm
And
thinking about that right now because the Raspberry Pi 5 just came out. And I'm like, well, this is really cool. But then when you watch the reviews, it's like, well, this doesn't work yet. This doesn't work yet. This doesn't work yet. This doesn't work yet. Other than that, it's great. I'm like, do we know that that's going to work at some point? Like, do we know that there's a lot of apps that don't work on it because it's a complete change to the whole architecture of it, and it's great. It's super powerful. It's awesome. But at the same
but
time, it's like, oh, do I really trust this to get to? I mean, I guess if it's the open source community. Eventually, it will, but still, it's not there. And it's like,
but
okay, well,
is it so much better than the last version
yes,
that
yeah.
you
Oh,
need to have one now when it might not work up to its full potential?
depends on what people are using it for. So what I've seen, and the thing I've seen the biggest improvement with, and this is the thing most people use Raspberry Pis for, dirty little secret, is emulation. Like old school emulation, like putting either RetroPie or Batocera or one of those on it. And a
Right.
lot of the emulators aren't written for it yet. And even the ones that aren't are as fast as they were on the 4. And they haven't even figured out the new GPU yet, and they haven't started like Vulkan doesn't work on it yet. Once Vulkan does, like all the Nintendo emulators, Dolphin in particular, it's going to run like hell. Like it's going to be incredible on this thing. Like it's tolerable now. It's just buggy. But when they get that figured out, it's going to be amazing. But right now, it doesn't do anything. And, there's other apps that may never come out because they're old apps. People do open source. They put something out in the community and they're like, have it, goodbye, see you later. And it just sits there and dies in the community if nobody picks it up and updates it later on. So I want one. I want one.
Well,
I actually have to build one of those for somebody. They asked me if I could build them like a proper retro thing with loaded up with a couple of ROM sets for them. And I'm kind of excited because I haven't done one of those in a really long time, so it'll be fun.
I still have an Xbox that does that.
Yeah, for now. Well, actually no, your Xbox will do that forever because you're not. Do you see how much they're pushing? All these companies are pushing to just kill emulation. Like they really don't like emulation. It's getting more and more ridiculous.
Well, you can't take the ROMs back off my server. Sorry.
Nope. Nope. And that's why once I found a place, I hate to say it, maybe I'm outing myself here, but I found a place that had ROM sets for all the systems I wanted. I spent 3 or 4 days just downloading ROM sets. It's like, you know what? You can take them off the internet everywhere. I still have them all. Like Kathy wanted to play Astroblast for the Atari 2600. And I just went into my Atari 2600 ROM set, pulled out Astroblast, and installed it on the handheld. And she was playing Astroblast 20 minutes later. It's like
Yeah.
I
Well,
wouldn't give that up for anything in the world right now.
I mean that's one of those interesting corners of piracy where you have to wonder who's actually. I mean, a lot of times in piracy, the pirates are just in the wrong. I mean, plain and
Hmm.
simple. Let's just say, stealing the movie and stealing the music is wrong. You're
Hmm.
stealing. Doesn't stop us from doing it, but I mean, at least we know that's wrong. But the question on emulation is if it's not available for me to purchase
Correct.
anywhere legally, then who are you to tell me I can't get a free copy because you won't sell it to me? If you're
Right.
refusing to put that product somewhere that I can pay for it, then who are you to tell me I can't just go get it from wherever it is actually available? I
Yeah,
mean,
and I have, and I'm just, just putting this out there. I have gone out and bought, like, okay, so Nintendo Switch. I don't. Do you have do you or the kids have a? You must have a Switch in that
yeah,
house.
we've
What
got
am I
two
even?
switches.
I asked that question. I'm like, no. What are you, an idiot? Of course they have a Switch. But like, I pay for Nintendo Switch Online mostly for the old games. I mean, I rarely ever use the online functionality. I play it mostly for the old games. And I have those old games, but I feel like, okay, this is my way of saying, hey, you made these available. Let me support that for a couple of bucks a year. It's worth it to me to say, hey, I like this. Keep doing more of this. I want more of this. Atari came out with the Flashback Gold last year, and John from Gen X Grown Up reviewed it. And as soon as he did the review, I jumped on Amazon and bought one. Do I need an Atari 2600 console that I hook up to my TV that plays fewer games than I have in my ROM set? No. Do I want one? Maybe, because it looks kind of cool. Do I think it's a good thing that when Atari comes out with a system like this, you go, thank you for doing this. Let me buy this silly little thing that's probably extraneous to my life because I want to encourage you to do this more often. And I think that's kind of where Nintendo has always been wrong. And they're finally, I think, realizing that they were wrong because now they're making their older stuff available on their own platforms. And I have a feeling that the next platform, the next Switch, is going to be way more retro friendly than the current Switch. I have a feeling that they're going to pretty much seal up all the systems into that Switch with Nintendo Switch Online, and they'll make that $50 a year a lot more worth it. But
Well, I don't see any reason why they won't sell us NES games, Super NES games, uh,
I'd buy them again.
N64 games. I mean, I don't know why they won't sell us versions of these games. I mean, it's not like we haven't paid for these things 7 freaking times already. I mean, I was buying bundled NES games on my Super NES. So I mean,
Hmm.
I can't tell you how many copies of Mario I've bought on how many different platforms from different directions, but
When I went to RetroCon, one of my shopping list items in my head that I wanted to get was a copy of Pokemon Red for the original Game Boy. I wanted a physical copy because I do want to get, and I haven't gotten it yet, but I do want to get a Game Boy Color and do the IPS mod on it. I actually have the mod kit. I just haven't. I sold the Game Boy Color that I bought to do it on. So I got to get a new Game Boy Color, but I'm going to do the IPS mod kit to have a nice screen and play it on original hardware. But I paid $60 for that damn game. Now I know that it's worth $60 because that's the market price where it's $50 to $60. So I don't mind that I paid $60 for it. But yeah, Nintendo, I paid $60 for my second copy of that game so that I could play it on original hardware because you don't make it available. It's like just sell it to me. God, just sell it to me, please. I'm begging you. Sell here, take my money. The little bit I have, I want to spend on you. Okay, but yeah, no, I love that stuff. I'm glad. I'm kind of glad that you like it too because I feel like that's one of the things that we agree on. The old stuff is still fun. I mean, it's not complicated, but it's definitely fun to pick up old games once in a while. Like I like that
Yeah.
you're into it too.
Well, I mean, a lot of it's nostalgia for old people that
Mm-hmm.
played very primitive video games in their youth and like to go back and remember what that was like and try to have fun on something that the graphics don't even look like what they're supposed to be,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
It's always kind of cool when you pick up an old game that you really struggled with and now you're just good at it because you're older. And it's like, oh wow, it really was. I wasn't bad at this. I was just too young. Like
Well,
I picked up a couple of games on the. I was playing a couple of games on Switch Online. I was like, wow, I remember this game being a lot harder.
it can go both ways too, because maybe you put a lot of time and effort into a game back in the day, and you
Mm.
put hours and hours and hours into it, and it's been 20 years, and you've lost your touch, and that game is no longer as easy to beat as it was 25 years ago.
I've been getting my ass whipped in Tekken really bad. And I'm like, I used to be so damn good at this game, and I cannot beat the computer anymore in Tekken, which is very, very sad for me because that was one of my games. And Tekken 2, I just get my ass handed to me on a regular basis with both of them. It's like, damn it,
I,
where will that
I
skill
don't know.
go?
I've been half decent and stuff at a lot of different games, but I think one of the few things, especially in the if we leave consoles and go to arcade, one of the
Mhm.
few things I've ever done that I considered that I beat the game. And it's a game that doesn't have an end, but I beat it because I could play as long as I wanted on one quarter, and that's Gauntlet with the Wizard,
I love Gauntlet.
the original Gauntlet. I could put a quarter in and play for literally hours and hours, and I could walk away and go to the bathroom and come back. He's still alive and waiting because I had so much food.
It is
I don't
it
know,
that's a class that's a classic. There was that and then later on, well that
but I
what
couldn't do
made
it
that
today.
game was that?
But I couldn't do it today.
You might be able to you'd probably be pretty good at it today because that was a fast mover though. You had to have twitchy reflexes for that game. It was the same. I have the same opinion of Berserk that you have of Gauntlet. Like I was really good at Berserk as a kid, like really good. Like I would go through level after level and I would just keep doing boom boom boom. Like they would just go quick. And now it's like I play it and it's like, "Oh wow. Yeah, you used to be good at this. You don't have those reflexes anymore." That those short twitch muscles ain't what they used to be.
No,
But
they've stretched out.
they stretched out a bit. Um, I'm going to take a second. We are an hour and 20 in. I didn't even realize this. This was like we had no plan going into this, and we just talk. I knew Jeff and I could just chat because we pretty much chat every day anyway. But when
Well,
I'm not being a crappy
I
friend anyway.
I did
Um,
ask for a list of questions before the show, but I never got them, so I guess we just had to wing it.
We just had to wing it. I want to take a second to thank the people that support the show financially, and those people include Best Man Al Schultz from New York Woodworks, Scott Oram from Dad It Yourself DIY, Ed Swanson from Ed's Clocks and More, Nick Birchtold of Birchtold Design Build, Tori Decker of Tori Did It, Jake Drews of Make with Jake, Meg and Chris from Onyx Design Woodwork, Christian Neary from Warren Works, Ken Madden of Mad K Studios, David Wood of DW Wood Builds, Dean Duplantis, Chris Raley of Route 9 Signs, Jeff Stein, aka A Weird Guy, look at that, Kim and Garrett from Kim and Garrett Make It, Rory Langefeld of RLO Woodworks and DIY, Robert J. Keller, Brian Arsenault, the Seven Hills Maker, Dave Bauer from Dave Bauer Art, Donald LeBlanc of Fun with Woodworking, Ross Cave, Jeremy Spees, Grant Alexander from the Clamp Podcast, Brad Harrison of Brad's Customs, Billy Polton of Polton Projects, Eric Peterson of Overall Makerworks, and Earl Van Alstein. Thank you so much for supporting the show financially. I really appreciate it, and it means the absolute world to me. And I hope you will continue, because I plan on continuing the show for a very long time. If you can't support the show financially, that's cool too. Feel free to leave a review, share the show, tell someone about it. It's on YouTube every week. It's very easy to share from there. I know that audio podcasts are a little trickier to share, but the YouTube version of the show is super easy to share. And I do appreciate all you psychopaths that send me pictures of my face on your TVs and tablets so that you could get those watch hours up. That means a lot to me, because the watch hours are definitely higher than they used to be. And I can totally attribute that to all you crazy bastards sitting there watching the show every single week. And I really, really do appreciate that. Jeff, it has been an absolute hoot having you on. I love talking to you. I love the stuff you're doing. Al and I talk about you all the time, and it's one of those situations where how do you not have like 3 million people hanging on everything that you produce? And maybe this is, maybe it's just we get you on here and we introduce you to a million new people. So who knows? But I really do love your stuff. I think you do amazing, incredible stuff. You're always stretching the limits and blowing our minds. And I hope you keep doing it. I hope you keep doing it, because it's fun to watch someone who's always, you're actually challenging yourself, and it's much appreciated by the little people like us.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate you being a friend, and I appreciate all the fantastic things you say about my work. So thank you for all of that. And I think you need to keep working on your community and making this your world, man.
Yep. And that's why there's a Discord server now, and it's pretty active. I'm pretty happy with how active it is already, and it's only going to get better. So if you like chatting with us and you want to chat with Jeff, because Jeff is in there regularly, I'm in there regularly. We have a bunch of the people that support the show financially are in there regularly. Just jump onto Discord. The link is in the show notes to join the Discord, and you can chat with us. Like literally just come in and chat with us. We have a lot of fun in there. We talk about all kinds of stuff. There's projects that I cannot talk about on this show that I have shown in that Discord. So it's kind of cool. It's like almost like behind the scenes. It's like peeling back the kimono. There's a reference to Because We Make It. Most people forgot. That's going to do it for this week. I will be back again next week. I am recording Wednesday night. As we record this, it is October 2nd. I am recording October 4th with next week's guest. His name is Tom Silknitter, and he has made one of the most incredible, and I mean incredible, replicas of the Back to the Future DeLorean that I have ever seen in my life. And we're going to have him on. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the new book that he has out about the process and how he got inspired to do it, and what it's like being the owner of one of the most iconic cars in movie history. And you're not going to want to miss that. But
I have to ask why a guy with a time traveling DeLorean needed to reschedule his podcast recording.
I'm going to have to ask him that. That's a great. I think I'm going to leave it right there. That is a great thought to end this episode on. Thank you so much for listening. I will be back again next week, and I hope you will be too. Until then, have a great week, everybody.